Pretty nice day. Nicer than the last time I was out here talking about Bandcamp and Shopify and all that stuff. Today, I'm not talking about any of those music business type things. I'm thinking about practicing. I have been a musician for over 15 years now that it's 2025. Almost all the time I've spent playing bass, both upright and electric bass. I've also spent a decent amount of time playing acoustic guitar. I've played some keyboards. I sang background vocals in my band. That era is inactive now, so I'm pretty much just a bass player. That takes me back 50% of my lifetime or more to when I was 14 or 15 years old and I started playing. And now here in January 2025, I have a rehearsal coming up this week, probably tomorrow as of when I post this, but there's a chance it might have already happened, but probably tomorrow, Friday, January 17th. And then later this month, a show and a recording session in the studio for one day with this group. This is a group that is really important to me to be a contributor to. I'm not the leader, but it's my musical priority at the moment, I suppose, because I don't have any other gigs in the month of January. I'm probably not going to play any gigs in the month of February even, but it means a lot to me to be in this group, this trio, and I want to do as well as I can. And it's important to remind myself of this right now because I'm challenged with my musical practice right now. If I'm being honest, a lot of the stuff that's going on right now is going pretty well. You know, I managed to get back out of the day job life, back to what to me feels like normal, where I'm here and I'm doing client work and that's all I'm doing, that's all I have to do to make a living. To me, that feels like normal. But that's going well, and even though that's going well and other things are too, personally, this dimension is challenging me, and it has been for a long time. I don't really know what to do about it, but I can think about where I've been on this practice path and why it's not really working out. I can think about it for sure. You know, sometimes I worry that I am throwing away my musicianship, sort of. I'm sure this isn't rare, but I think about how little time I spend on my instrument, and it really worries me. It's currently 2 weeks into the new year, and I haven't touched any of my instruments since before Christmas. They either haven't come out of the case or they've sat in their stations, so to speak, at home here. It's probably been a good month. And if I think about the total number of times that I've touched my instruments at home, it's probably smaller amount of time and fewer times than I have had gigs. Like, that is to say, even though I don't play a lot of gigs, I think over the last year or two, I've probably played more gigs than I have had times where I've picked up my instrument at home and practiced or played through anything or tried to learn anything. Even when I have had to learn music for certain gigs, like I haven't sent charts or recordings that I've had to learn. The way that I've approached learning them over the last couple of years especially is I've printed out the music if I have to, because I use paper charts still, you could say. Like, I haven't gone to using a tablet or anything like that. I use paper charts, so I'll be printing out the paper charts and I'll be taking them with me, and I won't review the music until the very last minute, like maybe until I'm on my way to that gig. I won't have thought about it or looked at it until that point. I certainly won't have picked up my instrument and played to try and sort those things out. So almost every gig I've done over the past couple of years has been with zero to no preparation, and I've hardly touched my instruments, be that upright bass now, which I do have at home, electric bass or acoustic guitar or piano keyboard or anything like that. Haven't touched my instruments at home, haven't made music at home hardly at all over the past years. And it's been all on a need to know basis and a need to do basis for the gigs, and just doing the absolute minimum to get through each gig is how it's felt for me. And that goes for gigs that I've played as a leader and as a side musician. Now, the reason why I'm focusing on the last couple of years is because there is a period of time before the last couple of years, which is in the depths of COVID, and I was actually playing during that time. I was very musical during that time. I finished my first album, Aim to Stay, I put it out. I made my second album, Maybe Eventually, which came out in the fall of 2022 and kind of started this era that I was just talking about, where it feels like I've played a decent amount of gigs for a part-timer, but also prepared hardly at all. If you go before that period of time, in the depths of COVID and such, I was very musical. I was playing my instrument a lot at home. I was messing around with different things. Some of it is reflected on little recordings that I've made here and there. And I did prepare for things. I did some studio sessions with close friends of mine in New Westminster, both on my projects and on theirs. And I enjoyed preparing for those things. I enjoyed working that out at home. I had a good setup at home in a home office room where I could play. I did touch my instruments a lot. I'll probably throw up a video from that era, pulling another one from the vault as something to upload in the near future, so that I can show you a snapshot of that period of time. And certainly before that chapter, before COVID, I was absolutely playing a lot, because my whole life was my band. The band that I started and I was in, Early Spirit, touring and playing and working out those songs. I was thinking about them all the time. I was playing my instruments at home. I was so immersed in the band life that I was looking for other musical outlets to stimulate myself as a player. Like, I started playing some guitar and I started playing duo gigs with a friend where we'd play folk tunes. She would sing and play flute and I would play guitar, and that was something I had never done before. It was a nice new thing for me to try. It was a new outlet, right? So I was, in the main, I was playing bass a lot. I was working on a repertoire of music that was constantly in my mind. I was trying to think of things to add to it. I was looking for other ways to express myself too, in addition to that. I still wrote some tunes too. Like, I'm thinking especially of my tune Little Milk that I play with my quintet, and that came out on the 12th Street Quintet EP that I have. I can think of that tune. I can picture when I wrote that. I've probably lost the video, but at one point I did have the original footage of the very second that I wrote it, because my mom and I bought a new piano keyboard to use in her garage, which was one of Early Spirit's main rehearsal spaces. I wanted that keyboard there for that and for other uses, like maybe teaching some lessons or taking some lessons or collaborating with people. So we bought a piano keyboard together for her garage, and as soon as I unpacked the keyboard for the first time, I turned on my phone, I started messing around on that keyboard, and I wrote the tune that it was exactly Little Milk, like I just kind of spontaneously composed it. So, and that was during my band years with Early Spirit. It was right at the peak of them, basically. So even then, I was also looking for alternative ways to express myself. Like, in the main, I was working on a repertoire so much that I would get bored with it and I would want other musical expressions, which is very different than now, where now it's like, I have the gigs that I have, I'll do the minimum to prepare for them, and other than that, I won't touch my instrument, I won't even search for any other kind of mode of expression. It's just totally deactivated. And then if you rewind even further than that, I am an obsessive player. Pre-Early Spirit, I am an obsessive player of what I understood to be the jazz tradition, or at least what I noticed of it at that time as a teenager, as a student, as somebody looking for examples and mentors to pick things up from. And then I shut that off to go search for something different when I went on my solo trip to Europe, which is a whole other story. But then after I came back from that, it was the band days. So if you walk through the chronology, it's like I start out as a very passionate, very obsessive student, spending all kinds of time on my instrument. Like I was talking about this with Vez too, randomly, where we were talking about grade 12 experiences. And I realized that like by grade 12, I had kind of done a lot of school, whether I was just finished with it in my mind or literally I'd finished the coursework, and like I had so much free time in grade 12 to just play my instrument and maybe play a couple of gigs even, but just spend a lot of time jamming with my friends and practicing stuff. So chronology, in the very beginning, I'm a very passionate young player on my instrument. I have that student phase. I have that obsessive phase. I shut that off. Eventually I find my way into my band years, where then that repertoire becomes something I concentrate in. I look for other outlets, like continuing to sow the seeds of starting to be a band leader under my own name, but also playing some guitar and teaching some music lessons and things like that. And then in the depths of COVID, you know, I'm still very expressive on my instrument. I'm still looking for that as an outlet. I'm still messing around. And now, you know, well, what have I been doing now? I've been doing rhythm changes, so I've been talking to people, I've been writing, I've been putting together this website about the Vancouver jazz scene and learning about audio, like in the sense of podcasts, and that was new too. But so I have this new creative outlet, Rhythm Changes, right? And then I'm working for labels, and that's kind of creative too. You know, it's administrative, but it's creative. Like I especially think that what I just thought of how I want to say that. Yeah, I think marketing is very creative. You know, I think for me, I'm not one of those. Yeah, this is what I was just thinking. I'm not one of those artist types who thinks like there's any tension between marketing and creativity. You know, I think marketing is a creative act, and I enjoy it. And maybe that is funny to say. Maybe there is something hidden in there, because as I've learned more about marketing and as I have depended on it as part of my career, I feel like I've become less of a musician. I've spent less time. So maybe it is like eating away at that. But to me, the reason why I say it feels like creative outlets, because it feels the same. Like I get the same kind of satisfaction out of trying to do marketing things in the arts with people as I remember that I did for all these years on stages and playing. Because to me, it does all boil down to who you're interacting with. It's like, one of my favorite things about the band days was just all the people you talk to and the social aspect of it, and performing for people and then talking to them afterwards or during or in the middle, and going about your touring days and the interactions that you'd have, and you know, within the band and as a band to other people. You know, I loved all that stuff so much, and that feels like what I'm trying to do at Rhythm Changes and what I'm trying to do when I do marketing and even administrative services for music companies and record labels. Is I am looking to facilitate those kind of positive interactions with people that I love so much, right? So it does kind of feel like the same thing. Maybe it is kind of, you know, it is satiating me that I'm trying as hard as I can to do that well, and so I don't feel like I need to go and be musical on my instrument anymore, because I'm still chasing the same thing but in a different way. That's possible, right? But to me, marketing does feel like a creative act, and it doesn't drain me, I guess, in the way that, not in the same way that I do hear a lot of artist types say that it drains them. But I think it's a problem, and it's a problem that I've flagged for myself a few different times. You know, New Year's is always such an interesting time for me, because there's this holiday time where everything kind of cools down and people shut down and take it easy. And then there's New Year, and then there's my birthday kind of right after. So it's always such a nice reset time. It's always one of my favorite times of the year. And I always think about what I did and what I want to do. It's a very natural break point for me. So for the last several years now that I've been in this phase, it's been on my hit list, in the sense of, you know, I'm worried that I'm not spending very much time on my instrument. And if I don't do something about it, it's going to be a problem. Like I feel like I'm getting away with something where I'm not putting in as much effort as is required to maintain musicianship. You know, I feel like if I keep doing this for enough years, like I won't be able to hold up my end of the musical bargain anymore. Like my skills will kind of atrophy, and I just won't be able to hang anymore. Like, for whatever reason, I still can. Like, I'm lucky enough that I can still make it through. You know, I can do the minimum and I can play with people, and it works. You know, people do ask me to do things, but I am worried that I'm kind of on thin ice in that sense, and it's something I've thought about at these break points for the last couple of years, and I haven't solved because I still haven't been spending more time on my instrument. It's still something to work on. I don't know what to do about it. It shocked me when I realized that, you know, it's 2 weeks into the new year and I haven't touched my instrument since before Christmas. I need that to end. It's going to end on Friday, whether that's still to happen when this posts or afterwards, because I'm going to have this rehearsal, and that'll be the first time I touch my instrument in about a month. And then it really should end en route to that studio session. You know, I will want to prepare for that, because as I just said, I got to tell myself, I got to remind myself how important this group is to me, how much I love it, how much I want to do the best I can, and that's what you need to do if you want to do the best you can. But there is this nagging fear that, you know, because of how I'm coasting on it, that I am jeopardizing my musicianship, or that I'll throw it away pretty soon if I don't do something about it, you know? And just in general, it's important to me that at this big checkpoint of being 30 now, that it is an occasion to remind myself not only that I can break from the things in the past that I don't want to have to carry around, but also I just noticed how much of what I've done is about, you know, trying to get away with as much as possible, trying to get away with things. And I don't want it to be about that. I want it to be about doing things really well, to getting the most out of something, to showing up the most in some situation. I want it to be about, if it's my own project, you know, setting the table as best as I can so that everything can go really well. I feel like that's the opposite of approaching things like, how much can I get away with? How can I do the minimum? That's so much of what I've done for so long in so many different areas. And that hit me like a ton of bricks when I realized that. So this one dimension of why am I not spending any time on my instrument, and why has it gone on for as long as I have, it's something that I have to think about. I think there's a lot in there in terms of this question about getting away with things versus showing up and setting the table and being ready. I'm ready to think about that.